Well, Phaenelagh Burnett, welcome.
Thank you.
All the way from Australia for this episode of Seanversastions. I've told everybody at the beginning of most of these that because of the weird way I've lived my life over the last 20 years, I've met some of the most interesting people, and I like having conversations with them to show other people how these interesting people do what they do and why they are what they are and all of that. So specifically for this podcast and nothing else, you have flown in from Australia.
Well, I'm just glad to be considered amongst the interesting people that you have met. So thank you very much for having
absolutely. So we're going to have a conversation about nothing or everything. Doesn't really matter. I want to know, what is life from your perspective? Why do you do what you do? And all of that. Now, we typically start these with something called divulgences, which is I just throw something out and I just want to lay it out there. You, I don't know how to say it. Some people grow up working on cars with their dad, and they just speak the language. And I kind of grew up talking wine with my dad. And so I sort of speak that language.
Good language to speak.
Yeah. You grew up talking speakers and live audio and electrical engineering and this very technical language that's very specific to something that I absolutely love and has shaped who I am. And I find that very interesting because you have a perspective that I didn't really start stepping foot into until I was in my 20s and had played so many shows that I walked into a show that wasn't my own. And I had what kind of, I've described it before as the magic felt like it had dissipated. And I was terrified because I walked into a show that I should be excited about and I should be smelling the smells and seeing the sights and getting excited. And instead I walked in and I was like, I know what the bar back is doing. I know where the band is. They're through that door. They're hanging out and they're doing this or they're doing that. And it's just, it seemed like, damn.
The magic was gone.
Like, why is this happening? And it was kind of right then that I realized, well, that's not, it's a change. It took me a while to realize that, but it's not that the magic was gone. It's that I have a different role in it now. And what I should be doing is helping to make sure that other people feel that magic and know what that is. Now, that other side of it, you have been the person behind that scene that kind of makes all of that happen, inadvertently or in small part. But working with your dad to make these big, giant audio systems that gave so many people that magic. So thank you for being a part of that machine and for allowing that industry to do what it did for so long. I'm talking about Leonard Audio, something that's near and dear to your heart, that partly made you, thanks, Dad.
Well, essentially, it's been there my whole life. So
I don't want to talk a whole hell of a lot before you get into who you are and why are you here. You didn't just come in for the podcast. That was just a little light humor to get things going.
That was an added bonus.
Yeah.
So I should actually just clarify one thing about the electrical engineering side of it, because
Please.
I certainly don't want to leave people with the impression that I am particularly knowledgeable or educated in the electronic side of it.
Okay.
My involvement over the years, obviously my father is, so he would be classified as an electroacoustic engineer.
Who's your dad?
So my father is John Leonard Burnett. In some circles in Australia, he could be known as probably the I suppose father in a way of the live music scene in Australia from a PA perspective, from the actual equipment perspective. So, a couple of years before I was born, he started Leonard Sound. Back then, the company was called Leonard Sound. And he started off making guitar amplifiers in particular. Back in those days, they tended to be quad boxes with tube amplifiers included in them, quite often built in, so as single units. often with either 4 12-inch or 4 15-inch speakers included in those boxes. And for a few years, they dominated the live music scene in Australia. So a lot of the big gigs that you would see, or even a lot of the touring artists that would come in from overseas, you would see on stage with big lineups of Leonard stacks behind them. Now, this was back in the day where all the instruments were run through PAs, and you might just have the vocals separate, but everything else was just instruments being plugged into a major or a main PA arrangement. So there was a lot less of the convolution of the mixing and the foldback and all of those other things that have come in since then. But that was back in the late 60s, early 70s, and pretty much before Marshall and Fender really took hold in Australia. So there's a lot of stories. My father on our website, theleonardaudio.com, has some really fantastic stories that he talks about those days and some of the adventures from those days. And
I've perused some of those. It's worth reading.
Yeah, really interesting stories about what the industry in Australia was then. But for the American audience, I think it's also interesting because there's a lot of similarities around that time. There are some differences, but a lot of similarities. And a lot of the way things were developing from a live music perspective or from an industry perspective with the way the recording industries were developing, and, it was sort of shifting from that era of when the industry was shifting from more of a live music centric focus, as in if you wanted to hear music, you were more likely to go out and hear live music.
And now?
Now you're talking about my childhood with that record. The first album I ever owned, actually.
Was it the first? Or was this the first?
I never actually owned a Men at Work album, but yes, that's another story. But
if nobody can
Thriller,
tell,
absolutely, yeah, that was my era.
If nobody can tell from the visuals around us already, we are in Rosebud Records.
We are
the mighty Mark McElroy of Gary's Guitars and the Electric Cave and Elroy the band and about 1,000 others has lent us Rosebud Records for the night to hang out and record this episode. So we're eternally grateful.
Yes, and it's a fantastic space, and I'm
really
struggling to not keep diverting my eyes to all of the fantastic.
We were doing that earlier.
Covers
as soon as we walked in, it was, oh, what is this? Ooh, what is that? Hey, what do we got there? And it was like, what are we going to line up the shots with? And, well, it only made sense to put Patty behind you.
Ah, excellent.
And
yes.
Bob
and
behind
Bob.
me.
Yes.
But as the industry was changing and things were getting recorded and now people could hold music in their hands, take it home with them, the listening experience changes.
Yes.
So people end up with systems like the ones that are in the backgrounds, record players, and then headphones, so it changes again. So you have all these dynamic changes in how people are listening to music and consuming. So take us back to the 70s when things start changing. When you say changing, is it just the medium, or is it, the way that music is recorded, projected, all of that?
Well, if my father was doing this interview himself, he'd probably make a reference to Marshall McLuhan's reference to the medium is the medium is the media is the medium.
The media is the medium.
The media is the medium.
Yeah.
And it's probably no more true than it is with the music industry, I think, because at that time when we started to see that shift into recorded music dominating, like it started to be more economically available to people to have a record player or to be able to afford the vinyl prints and so on. You also saw a shift in the business models around it. So where a lot of the shift in the live was probably more dominated by overt elements of, say, mafia industry, for want of a better term.
Yeah.
We then saw a shift, I think, to different angles of the mafia industry with the recorded side of it.
Yeah.
And a lot more people could talk a lot more about that
I couldn't
than I could.
actually.
Right.
Quite a lot. I have a lot of family that came from that side.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of debate still going on, or lots of conversation could happen today, how much that has changed, or is it just the coating and the flavour that's changed? A lot of the behaviour is having these businesses that dominate the art and impose their influence, for good or bad, onto the art. That's a whole other line of conversation, and probably many other podcasts talk about that.
My family was very much, we'll call it helping the crooners, the Frank Sinatras, the Dean Martins, and those folks. So if you're a big fan of that kind of music, they helped support that, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, the world that my father grew up in, so he started his journey in that industry as an apprentice, working for an amplifier producer, somebody that was making handcrafting amplifiers and sound systems, mostly applied either to guitarists or to, so this is in the years that electric guitars are really becoming a big thing. So, through the late 50s, early 60s, and into the late 60s. And as that sort of developed into the PAs and my father went out on his own, is where he got his start and developed the basic principles. But when he was developing that product range back then, he was applying a lot of the principles of what he learned from those artists that were really focused on sound quality. And the people that he was dealing with, there was a promoter, very well-known promoter in Australia back in that time called Lee Gordon, that was, my dad was a bit of a protege of his for a little while. He was a mentor to my father for a short time until his unfortunate premature death. But his focus he was bringing artists like Frank Sinatra, Shirley Bassey, etc. into the Australian scene. But back then it was all about sound quality. It was all about how do you get absolute clarity and dynamic range. How is every musical instrument optimized and every musician highlighted with no distortion, no interference, and no reverberation either caused within the mix or from the environment.
Nothing muddy.
So nothing,
Pure tone.
Exactly, and really focused on the art for the art's sake.
Yeah.
But as things progressed and we get into the early 70s, and this is where I think there's probably a lot of consistency, not just with Australia and the US, but also in the UK, in other European countries as well, that we then start to see the corporate side imposing its will onto the art. So
they always snake their way in eventually.
Right. So the quality of sound equipment decreased. The quality of musicianship was less revered. You started to get more and more pop music developing that was more focused at mass market.
Yeah.
And
the formulaic approach to music.
The formulaic approach, and also the formulaic approach to how music is experienced. Now, luckily we've had classical, jazz, fusion style areas of music that have maintained their integrity, I think, pretty strongly throughout this era, throughout all of these decades, and sort of been the beacon of, keeping to the art and really making sure that the honour is kept within the art forms. But unfortunately, the development of pop and those early years of rock in particular, where that was happening, ended up sort of being swept away, I think, in the whole, monolith of the corporatisation of the industries. So what we saw directly into Australia is the big businesses realising that if they're going to be able to import into the Australian market all of the large sound reinforcement gear. So it was all about how you get rid of the local guys. So unfortunately, back in that era, the company fell prey to a lot of the dealings that went on in that time. And we saw not just my father's business, but other Australian businesses really being pushed out of the market and the ability to be able to stand up on their own 2 feet within what would have been a relatively small market at the time. When you combine that with the decades-long ambition of the sequential Australian governments to offshore, like I've said to a lot of Americans, that you think that Americans are good at offshoring, you have nothing on Australians.
Really?
We have
Australians
have mastered the art of offshoring.
Yeah, you're right next to where all the offshoring goes to.
Yeah. So it's been this progressive decline. Well, when I say progressive, very steep in some cases, decline of manufacturing capacity.
Yeah, the snowball down the hill started a long while ago.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's moving.
And it just grew and grew and grew, and basically has exploded at the bottom of the hill. We've seen that definitely over the last few decades. So even though we were moved out of that live sound side of it, my dad pivoted in the late 70s, and particularly in the late 70s, he pivoted mostly to education. So he developed educational programs, he developed a lot of educational material and curriculum and so on, and for quite a while actually, before I think YouTube got hold, and a lot of these younger, really fantastic YouTubers and educators have come into the scene. The Leonard Audio Education site was actually one of the largest repositories of audio information for a very long time.
No kidding.
And we maintained, sort of building on that over the years with a lot of my father's expertise. And like I mentioned before, all based on what we refer to as first principles. And by that I mean literally the first principles of science. So it's not about what we think we want or how we're, for want of a better term, brainwashed into believing what we're hearing, which is generally something different to what we're actually hearing.
Yeah.
So, the last few decades have seen us being basically gaslit and brainwashed into thinking that it's perfectly okay to go into a lot of venues and be listening to levels that are over 100 decibels with extreme distortion.
Oh yeah.
And not having hearing damage.
I've been in a lot of them actually.
Or that you're going to be able to maintain fidelity of sound and realism of sound in those kind of environments.
Yeah.
Or to try and ignore the concept of acoustics and the reality of what's happening with sound waves, et cetera, et cetera. So everything that we focused on has been back to the first principles of the science, what is actually happening, and then how do you leverage that with the technology that's available at any given time. So
how are the systems that you kind of grew up working on with your pops? How do those differ from what, like, say, Marshall and Fender were hawking?
So the core principle to everything that we've been developing from a fairly early time, so the late 70s, particularly the early 80s with the new era of a lot of the designs that my father focused on, is based on what we refer to as four-way active management principles. So there's a lot of confusion out there around what four-way active means, what four-way means, or three-way or two-way, what active means. Mm-hmm. And I think unique to the audio industry, and by extension, unfortunately, the music industry and other entertainment industries that flow off that. But I'll take one diversion for a second, which is to highlight the principle that amplified sound really is the foremost medium of the technological world and of our technological era. And I think it's something that we don't have our attention brought to in recent educational environments or in general vernacular. We've lost our recognition of the significance of amplified sound and how it is actually at the core of all the technology we take for granted today. None of the technology that even we've grown up with, and definitely the younger generations, would exist without amplified sound being resolved. Everything had to come from the ability to get a phone signal or an audio signal down a phone line as a core part of it. But even in an acoustic setting, being able to use acoustics and your environment to amplify sound enables an ability for communication beyond one-on-one
Yeah.
that no other medium does.
Right. Just like we're doing
Right.
literally right now.
Writing, sure, that provides a level of it,
Yeah.
but that ability to communicate from one person to many at one time is really what we could consider our modern societies being built around,
Yeah,
particularly in
and that's-
Western cultures.
That's the replication and duplication and then distribution of.
The distribution of,
Yeah.
because written information can go so far, verbal information goes much further. And as we would know in the music industry, music goes even further.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because now you rope emotion into it and you create bonds.
Exactly.
And now people have sentiments and then those things shape generations.
Absolutely. So before amplified sound was able to be applied broadly, going to a live music event or hearing music was, generally reserved for either the wealthy who could afford to go to concerts that were in a particular environment,
Or the super cool who know
or
where
the
it's
super
going
cool
on.
who knew where it was.
It's in a warehouse in a basement
But
somewhere.
either or, it's limited. It was specialised. It wasn't something that was ubiquitous. It wasn't available to everybody at any time of the day. Amplified sound opened that up.
Yeah.
But along with exploding the art form of music and sound, the art of sound in general, that is what has leveraged things like the movie industries, which therefore created the platform for all forms of entertainment that we understand today.
Yeah.
You combine that with the technologies like our electronic technologies, none of that really has any meaning without the sound. So it's great to have an iPhone, but until they could work out how to get the speaker and the microphone in the iPhone to make it work, it wasn't going to be a technology that was going to be it wasn't really going to go past a certain point.
It's not going to be highly adaptable.
Right. It's like you're thinking, yes, there were PCs and there were computers and they made silly little sounds, but before they even made those sounds, it was limited in what people could understand what the applications were. Once you bring sound into it, the whole platforms of what the technology can be applied to
Yeah.
exponentially, expand and we end up in the world we are today.
And then you put the internet into things, and that's like the nitrous in the gas tank, or in the engine, which just everything has to develop faster and faster and faster.
Well, not only that, but, and not being a scientist myself, so I
Yeah.
won't claim to be the purveyor of this knowledge directly, but without amplified sound, the internet as we know it today would not have necessarily developed, because it relies on the original platforms that amplified sound was developed, or that amplified sound was created from.
Yeah.
So everything, if you think about it, it all comes back to amplified sound one way or another. But we've lost sight of that, and we've lost sight of what good sound is supposed to mean.
Largely, yeah. I mean, there are
Yeah.
some people that are out there still chasing it, and you get the audiophile industry where it's how much did you spend on it, and if it's not 80,000 per speaker, what are you even doing?
Yeah.
But-
Do you have the crystals from the lost city of Atlantis that's bringing in the good vibes that's sitting on top of your speaker, or, how much gold is in your cables, which, in reality has nothing to do with whether or not the sound is realistic to the original
It
source.
sounds like you've been involved in some hilarious conversations with people who believe nonsense.
Hilarious, frustrating. Yes. And I have to admit, the good thing, like what you're demonstrating today, is we're now moving into a world where women, fortunately, are allowed to engage in these conversations, because for the majority of my life, this was definitely, quite taboo.
Yeah,
But
well, I don't see gender.
yeah.
Are you a woman?
Well, yeah. No, the last time I checked. But
Irrelevant.
Yes.
You have words to say, you've got a brain in your head, so that's really the only thing that matters.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is the wildest claim somebody has ever made in your presence as to something that you can demonstrably say, that was the biggest load of hogwash I have ever heard? And follow up, did you tell them that? Two-part
telling,
question.
well, it depends on what you mean by telling.
Is it the crystals on top of the speaker? If somebody thought that that was going to make it.
There's always that, and honestly, I tend to be a lot more diplomatic in those kind of situations anyway. Because,
Okay.
And it's not just about diplomacy. I think there's, because what I've grown up associated with, what my father has dedicated his life to, is we cross over all aspects of audio application. So I might just go back a little bit to that point about the amplified sound and just stepping that into the applications of what that means for us today in relation to music in particular, right? Because, there's lots of offshoots and branches of this that we can explore, but, we don't want to divert too much. But if we
divert anywhere. We got time. I don't care where you go with it.
Excellent. We might come back to that.
Cool.
But starting with music.
Yeah.
The application for music of amplified sound, as we all probably are familiar with, is predominantly understood through the medium of sound systems or loudspeakers.
Sure.
Right. So we tend to have a device called a loudspeaker that we put an electric signal through or electric current through and an audio signal, and out pops the amplified sound. Right. Now, the technology of the development of that actual loudspeaker, even the ones you would buy today, principally hasn't changed in more than 100 years. It's extremely unlikely to ever change. Music and sound is probably one of those, like music as an art, sound as a science, is probably one of those mediums that is limited in the physics of it. We pretty much have reached a capacity of advancement of a technology that we're going to reach for the most part as far as how you replicate sound, as in sound is vibrating air from whether it's a string or through, through a horn or through a voice, touching something, banging something, whatever it is. Replicating that just needs another medium that's going to then make the air move in a way that can reproduce what that sound was, hopefully as close as possible to what that original sound was. There's not really much more in technology we can develop from that. Yeah.
My background being part artist and part technologist, I suppose, is trying to find where there are bottlenecks and where the evolution of a technology is going to go.
Yes.
So if transmitting sound from maker to receiver has not moved in a long, long time, or not evolved in a long time.
Not the transmission. The transmission's a very different thing.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm referring to what the loudspeaker does.
Okay,
So the function of the actual loudspeaker, the physical item of the loudspeaker.
If it has reached its zenith, if it is where it can't really
principally,
develop much,
we never know. We never know entirely, but principally, yes.
That makes me wonder, what is the next avenue that either circumvents or operates in a different plane to where that is, if the point of the loudspeaker is to transmit a sound that's being made here to a receiver that is there, what is it that is going to be the evolution past that you just wouldn't otherwise conceptually come to?
Yep. And that's a great question.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. In a way, it's not so much an evolution. It's simply applying smartly technology that was actually developed back in the 50s and 60s.
What is it?
So if I go back to the way that a loudspeaker works, and it's principally just replicating the signal that's coming out of it. Now, they are made to varying degrees of quality to be able to do certain things in the same way that an instrument is. So if you just think of a loudspeaker similarly to any instrument, that's its function, is just to be an instrument. Then all you're really dealing with, and if you think of, let's say you've got a whole bunch of loudspeakers and then you've got a band of musicians with instruments. The quality of the experience of the band with the instruments is all about the quality of, or how good those musicians are at using those instruments.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the same with loudspeakers. It's not the physical material necessarily that's the issue. It's about the skill and the talent of the people knowing how to use them.
Yeah.
So, but with the caveat that obviously some products are made to better or higher quality, etc. But the principle of how to make a really good loudspeaker has been understood for a long time. Where we do get advancements in technology is things like materials. You might find materials that are lighter, advancements in, you're going to laugh at me, I know you've laughed at me about this before, in the aluminium. I will learn to say aluminum, it's all right. Things like the aluminum, the magnets.
We got a chuckle out of Carson. That's good. I love it.
Exactly. Yeah. It won't be the last time I say it. So there's all of those kind of advancements that can happen, and there's obviously advancements in things like digital recording mediums and DSP as opposed to analog.
Digital signal processing.
Digital signal processing.
Yeah.
Yes. And how we can use the technologies to make the most and actually get more flexibility and more creativity out of, say, a digital signal processor than we might with an analog circuit board.
Yeah, so this is like your tuner versus your muscle car.
Right. And there's all of these kinds of things that are advancing and will continue to advance. Right. So electrostatic speakers might be another one, but they're always going to have limitations. Without a large magnet, there's always going to be limitations of the level of sound they can reproduce, etc. Right.
So what happens when we introduce vibranium?
Right, there you go. Yes, then we
Some
can...
unknown element that we're now making magnets out of or something.
Then maybe Hot Black Desiato and Disaster Area will get their sound system. Your Hitchhiker's Guide followers will definitely get that reference.
God, why does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
42.
Exactly. So if we think about it from that perspective, and now I can come back to your question about the silly things, because there's different areas of the industry that different people can explore their own creativity through and their own interests through.
Yeah.
Even though because like I said, what we've developed or what we do straddles all aspects of the audio industry, from designing small systems, domestic recording studios, right through to the larger domestic studio mastering systems, large PAs, instrument amps, etc. It's the core principle of the design that is applicable and enables what we do to be broadly utilised. But that means that what we do can apply to the audiophile industry, it can apply to the live venue industry, it can apply to the recording industry, it can apply to domestic. The audiophile industry is, I think, an interesting area because it is hobby driven. It's not necessarily, and I think there's a lot of really well-intentioned people that are really striving for an experience.
Yeah.
And their only avenue in the market currently is what they're striving to attain through the audiophile industry. Now, the audiophile industry, we would argue, is mostly built on more like the snake oil salesman kind of stuff.
The industry of it.
The industry of it.
Okay, I was going to say the appreciation of it is different. The appreciation of it is an outpouring of an unmet need. It's the true appreciation and desire to be surrounded by something in that you put up huge amounts of money to experience on the highest level something that moves you to a spiritual core level. They just don't realize they are buying snake oil a lot of times.
A lot of the time. Now,
which is unfortunate. That
is not to say at all that there aren't some absolutely fantastic audio products out there. And a lot of companies really focusing on achieving fantastic sound and providing that experience to people, right? And I would say that the largest portion of the industry is that way. And definitely the largest portion of the customers within that industry are seeking that.
To me, they're buying the most expensive and the best muscle cars ever developed, when not many people, I know, you know, that there are Teslas out there that are, without even trying, eating their lunch all day long. There's nothing that can keep up speed-wise, and that's something that doesn't even have internal combustion engine. This is something that has a completely new piece of technology, which is where my head goes.
Yes.
How do you make the internal combustion engine faster than this? We've maximized it. Well, it's got nothing to do with an internal combustion engine. You actually make it like this.
Yeah.
So to me, the audiophiles are working on the sweetest muscle cars ever made. What is the Tesla that's coming along that's just like a whole new, it's in the shape of, it's in the spirit of, it does roughly exactly what this other thing does. What is that tech?
Right. And I would say in its purest form, that tech it's a mix of things, but is probably mostly leveraged off digital, for sure, off digital technology.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that digital technology, DSP in particular, digital signal processing, has the ability to revolutionise the audio, to trigger what we see as a revolution of the audio industry when it's applied smartly, right?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that analogue doesn't have its place, and if there are people that can hear a difference or think they hear a difference in something like that, in the same way that a lot of people think they might prefer the sound of a vinyl record as opposed to a CD, or people that might prefer one kind of streaming platform to another, all power to them. Like, that's great. Anything that works within the industry and gets people going and gets them engaged with the industry, absolutely fantastic. And the technology and music, engaging with music, absolutely fantastic. The cynical side of it, however, I think is where you do find, not just in the audiophile industry, but this, unfortunately, from my perspective, has permeated the broader audio market, as in the general consumer audio market, which for many, many years was probably predominantly dominated by Bose. Obviously, there are other companies like Samsung and Sony and TIAC and sort of JBL, obviously.
JBL is the one that, I mean, Bose has their niche in like the way that Apple has their niche, but really from the people that I would ask their opinion, mostly it's been JBL studios and
JBL definitely are they're at the centre of the technology development as well.
Yeah.
So we honour the original JBL technology.
Cool.
Absolutely. We are great fans of a lot of the early work that was developed in the early days. We wouldn't be, like, audio wouldn't exist in the way it does now if it wasn't for those original founders of companies like JBL and Bell Labs, of course.
Bell Labs, truly, yeah. My great aunt worked for them.
Oh, fantastic.
She was one of the first women to rise into the ranks of corporate leadership.
Fantastic.
And it was because an entire division of female engineers wouldn't work because they got rid of her.
Wow.
And they had to bring her back and put her in charge of a bunch of stuff. And then when she got back, one of the highest ups came down and said to the guy who was her manager, which was basically at that point a peer, "Why are you here?" And he said, "Well, I manage her."
Yeah.
What is she doing? Managing all of them.
Managing everybody else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was his last day. Sorry.
Oh,
Continue on.
no, good story.
Bell Labs, JBL.
Yeah.
Early
So,
work.
and there's been a continuation of a lot of really good research and focus over the years, and continues to be. There's a lot of great products that are still coming out of JBL and Harman, and I mean, everybody's buying out everybody else now. So
that is the way of it.
That is the way of it.
Sorry about that. That was us in the 80s.
That is the way of it.
Corporate raidership.
Yep. And we're seeing, and also with venture capital now and private equity, what we're seeing now is a big mix-up of the way that a lot of those traditional audio companies are structured and the way that a lot of the engineering and the design work that's going into them is structured. Now, getting back to, I think, the question that you were really working towards, and I've digressed a little bit from, which is what really is at the crux of it, of what's going to make the difference.
Yeah.
And I haven't forgotten the question about the silliest thing that I've come across and what I might have said in response to it.
I will come back to it if you don't tell me.
Yep. At the crux of it, whether it's analog or digital,
Yeah.
irrespective of whether it's a Bose system or a JBL system or a B&O or a B&W or whatever brand it is, style of system, whether it's a 3-way, 2-way, 5-way, however you want to call it. There shouldn't be any 5 ways, but you never know.
It is 2025.
Ultimately, it primarily comes down to how you manage the crossover networks and the amplifiers, the electronics, and getting the most out of the speaker components that you have. Now, the core of this, and this is really the core of the philosophy of everything that Leonard Audio does, right back to the early days, and this is where my dad, he'd go into these stories a lot more detail, obviously, than I can.
I'll have him on when he comes over.
Excellent,
yeah.
yes. So he learned it from that live music scene of these musicians like Frank Sinatra, the Shirley Bassies and all of those production teams that were absolutely dedicated to fidelity, the highest level fidelity. Now, what does fidelity mean? Well, the word fidelity basically just means faithfulness. Faithfulness being accuracy to the source.
Yeah.
Right. So when we're talking about a high fidelity system, what we're supposed to mean is that system is replicating what the original was to the highest possible level.
Yeah, the sound right off the string from the piano.
Now, first thing you've got to ask yourself is if you've got sound being made at the source, which is always through instruments, including voice. I'll just always include the human voice in instruments.
Sure, yeah. Courtney would be very mad at me
if you didn't agree.
Say,
yes.
Yeah.
My favourite instrument, by the way, the human voice.
That's awesome.
When you are listening to instruments, when they're playing, you are hearing each instrument individually. So the sound that each of those instruments is making is dynamic.
And it exists in its own frequency range.
Exists in its own frequency range. Now, nobody is supposing that if you have a 50-piece orchestra or a 10-piece band or a 5-piece band, that you are going to have a loudspeaker system with 50 channels where you are replicating each of those instruments individually.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Violin, seat 3 and seat 4, you can't necessarily pick them out in
You're
the
not
mix.
picking out the instruments. If you've got a band in front of you, you're not hearing the frequencies through your ears as individual instruments. You're hearing them as individual frequency ranges.
Yeah.
The first thing you've got to do is divide that frequency, that broad frequency range, back up into the sections that are dictated by the way we manage music, which fundamentally works out into the octaves. The first thing you've got to do is separate those frequency ranges. That's what the crossover network does.
Sure.
That's when we refer to an active, when we as Leonard Audio refer to an active system, we are not just referring to each individual loudspeaker being active. Actually, give me one moment, I'll go back to explaining the way the active, etc.
I got time.
For my purpose of this conversation. When you hear things being referred to as a 2-way or a 3-way or a 4-way system, we're simply referring to the number of individual loudspeaker components that are different from each other.
So like your tweeter,
Tweeter,
mids,
horn, lower mid woofer,
Yeah.
sub bass woofer,
Yeah.
as an example.
So that would be a 4.
That would be a 4.
Four-way.
Now, you may have a speaker cabinet that might have 3 woofers of the same size. You wouldn't refer to that as each of those being away. You would refer to that, like let's say it's got a tweeter, a horn, 3 mid-range woofers and a subwoofer.
Yeah.
You wouldn't refer to that as a 5-way system.
Nor would you
A 6-way system. You would refer to that as a 4-way system, not a 6-way
Right.
system.
Nor would you refer to an Ampeg SVT 810 cab as an 8-way system.
Right.
It simply has 8 10-inch subwoofers.
Exactly.
That are
Right.
doing the work of the bass,
It's
which is the work of the gods. Sorry.
I'll definitely take your word for that. Not as a guitarist myself. So it's not about the individual speakers, it's about the individual type of speaker within that system, right? So that's the
Yeah.
way. So a 2-way typically has a tweeter and a woofer.
Tweeter woofer. Yeah.
Right. A 3-way more likely will have a tweeter, an upper mid, and a lower mid woofer.
Yeah.
Generally, it varies from design to design. Everything that we do is before I go into that, the active, in a lot of parlance, generally refers to the amplification of those individual ranges, those speaker ranges. So is the tweeter amplified individually from the woofer? So that's your active. Does it have more than one amplifier? Generally, if a speaker system has more than one amplifier, it's classified as active.
And they would are those what you would refer to as drivers?
Right, the
Individual driver behind
loudspeakers
each.
are drivers. Yeah.
Okay.
I still haven't discovered why they're called drivers, but somebody else might.
It's driving sound.
Driving something.
It's driving it.
Funny words we apply to things.
Aluminium.
So that's the
Truly funny.
way and the active.
Yeah.
Right. However, if you have a crossover network that is dividing the signal, that can often be confused as active as well. Because normally what you would do in an active system is you would cross over the signals that are going to those amplifiers that go to those speakers. There's not really any point in having an active system with one signal. It's not really going to work that way because you're dividing it between 2 amplifiers. You generally divide the signal.
Yeah.
Right. So if it's just a tweeter and a woofer, you're dividing the signal of what would go to the tweeter and what would go to the woofer. But the management system really is the crossover network and to what's the extent of that amplification. Everything that we do, we classify as 4-way active management. So most of our designs are what we call fully 4-way active. So we have 4 different types of speakers, loudspeakers. Every one of those speakers is individually amplified. Plus, every one of those speakers has a dedicated signal range, frequency range going to it and crossed over precisely so that only the frequency range that that speaker is designed to replicate is going to that speaker.
So that's important because you don't have a big floppy bass speaker trying to do things that an oboe is trying to convey. Because,
Exactly.
You know,
You're not trying to get 100 hertz out of a tweeter.
Yeah, which to get
Often can blow a tweeter.
Yeah.
Right? You're not trying to get 15,000 hertz out of a big 15-inch woofer.
Yeah.
Right. So when you divide the signal up and amplify that individually, what you then have is that absolute separation and clarity of the sound again. So your experience of the sound through that system is then replicating far more accurately what was actually occurring from the instruments as the music was being recorded. Now, being a science, a genuine science, it's a lot more complicated than that.
Oh, I bet. Oh, I bet.
And there's complications in the recording process, there's complications in the mastering processes, there's complications in the delivery processes. So all the way through, you've got variances and people can debate till, the wee hours of the morning, all the different things that might come into play. But if you start with that as your baseline principle, plus making sure that the equipment you're using is not only optimally designed for the application it's being used for, as in don't try to get, 15,000 hertz out of a subwoofer, out of a 15-inch subwoofer, or put 100 hertz through a tweeter, and you make sure that you're using components that are made well, then you are far more likely to get to that realistic experience.
So from the outside and not the inside of that industry perspective, there would be the natural question of, if the sound that you're getting is the sound that you're going for, isn't that the best way to go about getting that sound? Meaning,
Right.
I heard it put best, Jojo Mayer, a drummer, who he said, everybody talks about the perfect form. Is this the perfect form? Is this the perfect form? Should I be holding my sticks like this or like this? And he said, if you take a trash can and you throw it out a second floor window and it hits the ground and you go, that's the sound I was looking, that was the perfect technique.
Right.
That was what you should be using. So for case in point, if you take lo-fi artists, if you take grunge or punk rock, all of these different tiny speaker, not a lot of watts, overdrive the hell out of it, it gives you this really terrible sound. If that's the sound that you're going for, how does a super high fidelity system that's recreating exactly the way that those strings are being strummed, how does that help them? And is that just like saying that Porsche is not moving a lot of dirt, but it could go way faster, and someone says, well, I'm using this old pickup truck and it moves plenty of dirt. Like, is that kind of the...
Look, the main word in what you said is art.
Yeah.
Art is art.
Perceptive perspection.
Not just that, but
Introspection.
it's the creative process. So whatever somebody creates as an art form is an art form in itself. So that's what should be honoured, is that art. So there's no reason for anything from that art to change when it's on a high fidelity system in comparison to if it's on a low fidelity system. Because if the art itself was designed for that, then that's all you're going to hear through a fully four-way active system, because it's only going to be replicating what was created in the first place.
So for the longest
in principle.
For the longest time, I don't know if he's still doing it, but Keith Richards has a very, very unique sound to his guitar.
Yep.
And everyone was trying to figure out, how the heck is he doing it? It's Marshall. We
Right.
know that it's
Yep.
Marshall.
Yep.
How is he doing it? And Marshall was really tight-lipped about it for a long, long
Yeah.
time, because he put a big stack of Marshalls behind him all the time, but nobody knew that they weren't turned on. He had the same 15-watt practice amp that they
Right.
were playing in the practice space.
Yep.
In the early days, under the stage with a microphone in front of it.
There you
And then he
go.
put that through tens of thousands of
Yeah.
watts.
Yep.
And that was recreation of the exact sound that was coming out of that practice amp, which is that
Yep.
super, super recognizable, that's the Stones and you know it is
Yeah.
when you hear it. So is that kind of what you're saying? You make your art here and you show your art there.
Yes.
So those speakers
Yes.
that you're talking about, the active four-ways,
Yep.
that's how the more the right way of taking what the artists have created and showing, say, either 100 people or 12,000 people.
Think of it like an infinite canvas.
Okay.
You can either create on that canvas with intricate delicacy, or you can just slap paint on it. Whatever you want to do, you've still got that beautiful canvas that's going to give you whatever it was that you created.
So the canvas in this instance is going to be
Is the four-way active.
yeah, okay.
Is the four-way active management of the system.
Gotcha.
That's what we refer to as the infinite canvas. So
That's the means to the conveyance.
Exactly. So the whether or not an artist is doing that, which is fantastic, and a great example of
True brilliance.
how the art is the art, I mean, and if you think about it, of course, which a lot of guitarists and musicians would know, what we hear with electric guitar is distortion.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
an entire art form, whole genres of music have been created from distorting sound, from what would have been considered noise.
Yeah.
That becomes an art form.
In 2004, I was selling guitar amplifiers and various other musical goods at a local music chain called Daddy's Chunky Music. And I had a handful of local harp players who would always come in looking for old, beat-up gear, but they didn't want the Fender Twin, they didn't want
Right.
a Deluxe, they didn't want any of that. They were always looking at the little practice amps.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
their intention was overdrive the hell out of that speaker and get that classic Southern, or one of them was after all of the different regions,
Yeah.
whether it be the way that they were playing the blues in Chicago versus Delta versus New York.
Yep.
I know. They did, but
course.
it doesn't get recognition.
No.
But yeah, whether it's deep south or up the river to Chicago, but they would bring these small practice amps with them, and they would usually have a Hornet or some other kind of microphone that was going to help them in their pursuit of putting a huge amount of signal through something that is never going to be able to handle it,
Yeah.
just so that they can get that wildly overdriven sound.
Yep.
And whatever they do with it past that is up to the front of house engineer, who's going to take that sound that they're making and go, this is what he wants to show. I get this is the
Yep.
sound. Do you like it? And people either clap or they don't. But it's
Yep.
up to you to craft that sound.
Yeah, which is fantastic. And that's what art is all about.
Tying all the way back,
Yeah.
what is the most absurd thing? What is the wildest, are you effing kidding me thing that you have had to suffer your way through hearing? And I hope it didn't happen in the past hour.
No. No, definitely wasn't tonight. Look, I may get in trouble for saying this.
Please.
But the main thing that comes to mind, I think, was when I was in Nashville, when would it have been 3 years ago, and I went to hear a demonstration of Atmos. And I didn't talk about my background in audio or what I was doing or my perspective of it. I was just interested in what this studio was doing. They were one of the main representatives of Dolby in Nashville at the time. I can't remember the exact name of the studio. I probably wouldn't mention it if I did.
That's fine.
But
Not really looking to throw shade, just have a little
yeah.
fun, just a laugh.
And it was probably a good exercise in my ability to keep my mouth shut at certain times.
I'm going to need a crash course in that.
This, and I don't hold it against the guy that was taking me through the demonstration, because he didn't know what he didn't know, right? So he didn't really understand, and it probably wasn't fair, really, because I was there, I didn't explain my knowledge of audio.
It's fine.
So,
You get an honest answer when that happens.
It could be considered a bit unfair for him, but in this explanation was also trying to, and this is the thing about Atmos that I find most interesting. And again, if we're using something as a form of art, I'm all for it. Absolutely. That's the core of everything we do is about is providing that canvas for the art, whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
So if Atmos is helping produce or develop a particular art form, fantastic.
Keep doing
And
it
it should be, it deserves, commercial success, and it deserves credit for that. But if it's trying to sell itself as something that it clearly isn't, and absolutely cannot achieve, and you would think that anybody with any level of discernment, or maybe who passed high school science, would understand, when you are dealing with an immersive environment, where they because it's all about the immersion in the sound, right?
Yeah.
You're in this
Feeling you're
in this
sitting
position.
in the room with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
I do not ever recall ever going to hear a live band where I've been in the middle of the stage.
I have, but I'm a musician who plays a lot.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, it's a unique experience.
That was not the intention of the artist.
Yeah.
The artists were not trying to give you the experience as the audience of individual instruments plucked all around the place, coming at you from all these different incohesive directions.
Yeah.
Totally discombobulated.
Good word, discombobulated. Pronounced perfectly.
Thank you. The one word I can pronounce, okay.
Yeah, no, that is, I don't understand. I suppose I could find a way to understanding why somebody might have arrived with that idea and then headed down that path of engineering. How can we make somebody feel like they're sitting in the middle of the orchestra, the band, or whatever?
That's the art. And there are artists creating for Atmos.
Yes.
Right? Fantastic. But when you're sitting in a demonstration and they're playing a piece that you know was not created for Atmos. It's being remastered for Atmos.
Yeah.
At the time of the recording, the musicians were focused on being a cohesive, in sync, in time collective. They were in the zone together as one unit, and providing one thing to an audience in stereo in front of them.
And you're there. We're here, and you're there.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the art that was created.
Yeah.
And then you've got somebody saying, this is what the artist intended for the trumpet to be over there and the
bass drum
to be over there and the hi-hats to be in a different location than the bass drum.
The funny thing is that I'm in Cursed on Earth, we have done a couple of shows where we wanted people to feel that immersive thing.
Right.
Literally, you're sitting in the middle of us, and we actually set the instruments up in a way whereby some people were sitting next to my ride cymbal, and they heard less of the hi-hats. Mm-hmm. They were sitting over next to the cello, and they heard less of the vocals. But tried to craft it in a way where it sounded like, more or less, you're sitting in the rehearsal studio with us.
Nice.
And we're playing this thing, and you get the feeling of I'm in it with them.
Yeah.
I feel bad for the people that were sitting next to my cymbals. Next time I'm going to shell in a little bit more. But the people who gravitated towards those things, they enjoyed the explosiveness of the cymbals. They kind of knew that they were going to be sitting there.
Yep.
Two did not. And that was hilarious, but they moved. But I think when you say to an engineer who's not playing in a band, I want it to sound immersive, perhaps they took that and they went where they interpreted that to be, which is not at all what we were saying. What we were saying as a musician playing is, I want the person to sound, or to hear as though they're sitting in the rehearsal studio with us.
Right.
Which means you're hearing balanced. You're not hearing like a dominating violin because you're sitting right next to the violin. What it means is I want you to feel as though you're in the practice with us, because when we make when we're trying to make the magic, when we're trying to craft this thing, we all experience on the regular this really great thing.
Yep.
And the tension is off. We're not in front of a huge group of people. And there are these really magical moments that happen that when you try and take it to stage, you just do your best to try and replicate this amazing thing. It's like that Jack Black song, the tribute. This is not the most amazing song. This is just a tribute.
Right.
Like we constantly get on stage and we try and show you this. God, at rehearsal the other week, it was amazing. Yeah. This is kind of like what we did. And it ends up either working really well, or you kind of get the point, but there are people who would spend huge audiophile level kind of money who are enjoying it for their reasons. Mm-hmm. And then some people who are bopping along because it reminds them of when they graduated from high school 2 years ago.
Yeah.
This is that song. This is my summer. This is my, and it's just like, that's
the nostalgia.
Okay, you're going to sing along and you're going to have fun, and that's awesome. This is, you're here for that reason, and they're here for this other reason.
Yeah.
And it's good for everybody.
Yep.
So the silliest thing that you've heard was?
No, that, like, being told that the Atmos mix of this completely discombobulated experience was what the artists intended.
That was the intended
That, I think,
reception.
is
Okay, so yeah, it is. I think it's
the
a
craziest.
miscommunication.
Now, definitely over the years, with all of the audiophile events that I've been to and conversations I've even had when I was younger in the pub, and I'm just sitting there and somebody comes up and says, "Oh, what do you do?" And I say audio, and there used to be some interesting conversations with that. But yeah, I mean, there's always interesting things. But I think, yeah, if I'm thinking of others, I would say probably more common now what I hear, which I can sort of, in my experience, sort of have a little bit of a, yeah, well, they don't really know differently, or maybe they're not really paying attention, or it is people believing they're hearing things that they're not. So,
Okay, what are they hearing?
you know, a lot of that comes down to, you know, the experience of different mediums having different qualities of sound, or different, you know, like you're listening through your headphones on Bluetooth, but you can hear lossless, the difference with lossless, or that you can, oh yes, I can definitely tell if it's, you know, that there's an imbalance over there and not, and then when you do the double blind tests, that it turns out to be something completely different.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, you do those tests a bunch. I've seen you do that. Where
yes.
you A/B between
Oh yeah,
these speakers, those speakers, and those speakers. Which ones are you listening to and why?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that is a trick of what you can achieve when you're dealing with fully four-way active sound and in stereo. But I think a lot of it is, and audio, this I think comes back to not just audio, sound in general as a science. There's a lot of what you know, like psychoacoustics effects, where we can be tricked by our ears a lot, and that is a genuine thing. And a lot of it's got to do with how we've evolved and the way our ears work and the way that sound bounces off things and the way that we're supposed to be more sensitive to certain sounds and understand where direction is coming from and all of that kind of thing. There's a lot of science involved in it. So I can understand how a lot of people might get fooled by certain things. But what I'm referring to is more when people, like, I can hear the difference between that amplifier and that amplifier, or you've put a different DAC on, that DAC sounds so much better than that DAC. It's like...
And even down to the needle.
Right. It's like, okay, well, when you say better, and I suppose that's probably another good segue into the concept of what is, or value qualifying experiences in audio.
Yeah.
And I think you and I have sort of touched on this in the past as well, about how when referring to a system sounding better, and one of the things I think I might have said at the time is, when it comes to our systems, it's important for us that we keep that terminology away from when we're talking about the Leonard Audio systems, because to us it's not about the system sounding better, because like better than what? And because every better than has to have a reference point. If you don't agree on what the reference point is, then those qualifications are meaningless.
Yeah. So what's the reference point between the way that, say, somebody that, we'll take somebody that is reputable and acknowledge that they are reputable, JBL. The way that JBL approaches sound design versus the way that Leonard approaches sound design, can they be benchmarked? And what are the similarities? Where do the similarities end, and why do they diverge?
There's definitely, and again, my father would probably be better to answer that question.
Okay.
More
fair.
In more depth.
I can't wait until he flies over.
Yeah, for sure.
He's also coming in specifically for Seanversastions.
Excellent. That will definitely be a fascinating conversation. I know you two
I can't wait.
will have a great conversation. He's far more interesting than me, I think. But
We'll see.
in what I can, I think, say about that is the similarities that we've come across. I mean, as an example, when we refer to our reference system, so we've designed one of our systems that everything else is either scaled up or down from. We have a particular design in our range that we refer to as our reference. Now, that reference, one of the woofers in that system is a particular JBL that we use as a reference for what we do, because
cool.
over the years of everything that we've done, it's been determined that that is the most accurate for what you are aiming to achieve. And a lot of that, I think, also comes from JBL developing a lot of the benchmarks early on.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are certain JBL speakers you can buy today that were made 70 years ago and still work perfectly today and have been used to death.
Oh yeah, I have a good friend of mine lives down in Rye, ran
They
two
should
different
be
radio stations.
worth their weight in gold.
Has two JBL Studio 2 monitors, and
Right.
he uses those with his old Macintosh tube system. That's what he listens to, all of his records that he spun on the radio that shaped who I am.
There you go.
All of that, those are two JBL Studio
Yep.
2s. And to him, I mean, he sold two radio stations. He can buy whatever he wants. He could buy Leonard Audio, let alone a couple of Leonard Audio speakers. Yep. Those two JBL Studio 2s are what he says, of all of the speakers I've ever listened to, those are what I want to listen to.
Right.
So Leonard acknowledges that.
Oh,
JBL's engineering is just superb.
Absolutely.
So use those as your benchmark,
Yes.
as your reference.
Now,
Where does it diverge?
over the years, I think it's just more different focuses, where the focus has been. So at a certain point, my dad put all of his focus into designing integrated systems. So everything we do is integrated, meaning that you don't buy amplifiers separately from the speaker systems. It's all integrated. We provide everything together. Often within the same cabinetry. It's only if we're doing large venue installations that we would have amplifiers separate, or the amplifier units and the crossover network separate. Everything's integrated.
Well, that makes it really easy.
Yes. But also the fully four-way active was something that JBL never developed commercially.
They didn't lock onto that.
We see the progression of that, and we have engaged with JBL over the years in various ways, you know, and you know, those kind of collaborations, whether it's with JBL or whether it's with other companies, is something that we definitely encourage. You know, I've always had the attitude that be friends with your competition, because when you work together, all you do is elevate that offering, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a product or whether it's a service or whatever it is you're doing. When you collectively cooperate, you elevate that, and there is more for everybody.
In the industry, we call it co-opetition.
Co-opetition, brilliant. I like that.
Well, it's the reason that Microsoft saved Apple.
Right.
Bill Gates recognized wisely as a businessman. He's more of a businessman than he is a technologist. He's very good at not writing checks. He's very good at stealing other people's ideas and paying other people to refine them and put them out in product. But recognizing Microsoft will be destroyed if there's no competition. So he invested, I don't remember how much it was, but he essentially took a 50% ownership stake in Apple by giving them so much money. And that allowed them to develop a lot of the things that would then become iPod, iPhone, you know, MacBook, all of these different things. But without Microsoft saving them, Microsoft and Apple would be destroyed.
And collectively, we've got.
And now collectively, there's so many out there that it is a good thing. I don't.
Yeah.
The idea that you need to be ruthless in business and destroy all your competition is it's juvenile, it's petty, and it's really short-sighted. So it's really cool to hear that Leonard has taken the approach, find the best, find people who are doing really incredible things, and figure out how to work with them and make them, you know, what they're doing even better, because that's going to drive them to take what they're doing and make it even better. Keep working together and everybody wins.
Exactly, and a primary focus into the future with the development of the standards, like we developed a set of application standards for audio hardware, to be precise. So it's about developing standardisation for how you will actually create audio systems, sound systems, that would require collaboration and cooperation across all areas, not only the audio industry, but all areas of music as well. So, because it is all part of the same thing. You know, it's easy to think of the audio industry being separate from the music industry and the music industry being separate from the broader entertainment industries, but they're not. It's all really one thing working. It's just got different arms of the same thing, you know, and there's a lot that can be achieved with like-minded people that are dedicated to the advancement of the art and the honouring of the art and the purity of the original source.
Yeah.
So, you know, coming back to one of those things about the better, you know, and we're trying to talk about, well, what would be the reference? To us, the reference must be reality.
Yeah.
If you're listening to, say, a recording of a bird through a speaker system, when we talk about the quality of that speaker system, it should only be in relation to how accurately does that replicate the sound of the bird that it recorded at the time of the recording. Nothing else really matters. You know, everything else is additional. It's like, you know, how the loudspeaker systems have become part of the art without the artist's consent. You know, because they changed the art so much. And this is I think been one of the biggest problems with the recording side of it. And yes, there are whole art forms that have developed in the same way that entire genres of music developed from the distortion created from electric guitars. Whole new art forms and genres of music have been created through hyperdynamic compression. And how do we work with this medium? How do we work with the restrictions of, well, we've got this digital medium now, and we're being, you know, sort of channeled into the delivery system being phone lines.
Heavy synth pop.
And the phone lines are only able to deal with so much because the technology hadn't you know, caught up with the music technology. So we've got to adapt to what that's going to do. Well, how can we get the most out of this restriction? And you've got to give credit to the artists that you know, worked that out. But at the same time, we've got to recognise that has sent us down a path that right now, I think we're at a critical point, an absolute critical point in history in general. I mean, there's many reasons for that, but in music in particular, where we now have a choice. We can either continue down that path and, you know, like I'm reading articles recently of Spotify, even though they've just released a platform for lossless, are being incredibly cynical about whether or not it's even going to work, because they're just like, well, if half of their audience or their subscribers don't even care if the music they're listening to is AI generated, why would they care if it's lossless or not?
So you've mentioned lossless before. I know what that is. I want to make sure everybody that's watching, listening knows what that is. So touch on what lossless is, and then it'll make sense applying it how you are.
Look, in the simplest form, and to avoid me making a complete balls up of the technical description, it's basically how you get CD quality down a phone line.
Okay.
So it's basically the means of how they encrypt the sound and compress it and uncompress, decompress, uncompress, whichever one you choose, in order for you to, what you're hearing afterwards is CD quality generally. Now, a lot of the platforms might say that they're higher than CD quality, etc., but the reality is that most sound systems, like we're not, our ears really aren't going to be able to discern anything greater than CD quality generally, only in very particular circumstances and for particular things. For general music, that's pretty much okay.
It's like 44, 48 kind of.
In 196, I think, or 96. Again, I don't want to balls up the technical description, but Apple, as an example, pretty much, everything, you can get everything in lossless. You can choose that. Tidal have a lossless, like a catalogue of lossless, etc.
Yeah.
So it's FLAC.
Yeah.
It's just FLAC, basically, the FLAC format. So it's just really the way that the music is uncompressed.
Yeah.
Now, on a system like ours, you can get the most advantage out of that. If you're listening to headphones, particularly through Bluetooth, you're not going to get the advantage out of that because you're not going to be able to hear the difference anyway, because through Bluetooth, they've still got to compress the signal. You're not going to be able to get the full dynamic range out of Bluetooth anyway.
Which would be
Yet.
decompress, recompress.
Yes. Now, obviously, there's a lot of work going on to try and resolve those problems or those restrictions.
Yeah.
Well,
good, because primarily I listen via Bluetooth.
Right,
Headsets.
and it will be a game changer, I believe, when that happens. In the meantime, we're sort of taking steps towards it. I'm highly encouraged by what Spotify have done, irrespective of Spotify's supposed cynicism about it.
Not paying artists for them.
Well, that aside,
Yep.
I'm highly encouraged because I would think, well, they wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't a demand, and there does definitely appear to be a demand. Apple are providing it because there's a demand for higher quality signal. And all that is going to do is drive demand for better quality sound systems.
Right.
Now, why I say we're at a critical juncture is because we've got an industry that, from an artistic perspective, for easily the last, other people might have different estimates of this, but I would say very much at least the last 15 years, 10 to 15 years in particular. Could be longer, time's going by so fast.
The blip really messed us
the blip,
up. Yeah,
yep.
3 years just seemed to...
But, time's just going faster. So if I say 15 years, other people might say 20. But we've had a decent amount of time now where music, the art form, has gone into these lo-fi, all done in DAWs or workstations. Like people are just using programs, fewer actual instruments.
Right. Fortunately, there's a pivot back to real instruments, which is really cool.
Right. Now,
I'm
that's
very happy about that.
And that's a great pivot to the point I'm making,
Yeah.
because there's definitely seeming to be this upsurge of enthusiasm towards authenticity.
Yeah.
And
I think that's the new currency.
to fidelity as an extension of that. Now, if you take that of, yes, we've hit a pinnacle, and again, this is one of the things that people can debate into the wee hours of the morning, hopefully with a good bourbon while you're doing it, whether or not we have reached the extent of what music creativity can give us anyway, because there's a finite number of variations of 8 notes kind of thing, right?
Yeah, sure.
Lots of people should go have lots of conversations about this topic. But
Launching off from the point where 8-bit Japanese composers programming for video games revolutionized music.
there you go, right?
Brilliance.
Exactly.
Oh my God, brilliance.
So every time we get to these points of thinking we've hit
That's it.
the end,
Can't do anything
somebody
else.
does something spectacular, and we get this complete revolution or renaissance of a creative art form again.
That's where the authenticity within the true creative geniuses manifests. That's where it all comes from.
Exactly, right. And I think I feel like we're at a critical junction now with that.
Okay.
The mainstream of these art forms has sort of reached a point. Everything, like now it's AI taking over. Well, AI, it's debatable whether anybody could call AI art.
Yeah.
I don't, but the art is in the question. You ask the AI, so you never know.
To me, it's a processor.
It's a processor. It's
no different.
It's an instrument.
It's like
right?
saying that synth music is not art because it's not being made by a human or by an instrument with an analog signal. It's just messing with frequencies.
Right, but there's still a human having to
Of
do
course.
that. Yeah.
Of course.
But and new art forms will develop out of it.
Yeah.
So we're at this juncture where we're going to see a greater demand for fidelity. We're going to see a greater demand for more creativity in music. Right at the same time, and I may be unique in my perspective of this, but right at the same time that we're seeing pretty much all of the major audio brands collapsing.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Bose is almost completely out of the mainstream market. Even B&O. B&O just go through these cycles, and they price themselves out of the mainstream market anyway. But they've historically gone through cycles of being rescued, almost bankruptcy, rescued again, verge of bankruptcy, rescue again.
Somebody
a
buying
lot
the
of
name.
audio industries that's happened to. We've just seen the whole, what was it called? Not Universal. There was a conglomerate of audio brands that was bought up by a science company for something like $1 billion and then got resold for like 100 million or something. I could be very wrong on those numbers, but we're seeing a lot of this go on. A lot of VC money coming into it. A lot of PE, private equity money, venture capital and private equity money coming into it. When you see that, you know that things aren't good because they're not standing up on their own.
Yeah.
Right, so a lot of these traditional brands are struggling. They're all getting bought out. Samsung basically owns the world now.
Yeah. I think
it's just ongoing.
There's something that is so there's
And
there's
none of
currency
them have
in
the
the
solution.
No, not yet. They will soon.
Well, we claim to have
that's
it.
the
but
thing
that's a
about
different matter.
market is the market generally will figure it out.
Yes.
The very brilliant people are routinely always working on what's the best way to do something and how do we position it. Because for a while you can make a lot of money doing that, and then eventually margins get skinny, and you again try and adapt or move things in some revolutionary direction, because then again you open that time period that you get to make a lot of money, and then again over time it narrows. The internet and wild accessibility to communication led to a marketing and advertising explosion because of the internet that created a new form of currency, and it's the attention economy. And the attention economy was driven entirely by algorithms. So what you wanted to get was attention, and you wanted to keep people's attention, and the more attention that you were able to hold, the more you were able to monetize it. That became like a turbocharger for junk. And now if you go on Instagram, it's all junk. It's 99.9% continuous junk. And you can see it. Everybody knows exactly what to say and how to look and how to move and there are mechanisms that allow you to click so you don't even have to say anything. And this is long form. This is us not having anything scripted, just talking. Yeah. As authentic as it gets. We didn't talk ahead of time. What are we going to talk about? What are we not going to talk about? Just conversation. Authentic. There are devices that allow you to mid-frame, mid-thought, click and just start talking about something else, and it'll edit it for you so it looks like one stream of continuous thought. It's not at all what it is. That person sat and thought for like 5 minutes, what am I going to say next? And then they click in, then click out. Yeah. So to me, what I think is happening is the youngest generation now is recognizing that everything is what you and what I recognized happened to music, where it went from being artists and people who are not polished, people who are not looking at monetizing necessarily. They're looking at making something, expressing something. And I think the next economy is authenticity, because there is so little authenticity that people are starved for it. And as soon as they see something whereby, and this is why mainstream media is collapsing. It's not just lying to your face and gaslighting you constantly. It's the old method of putting on a suit and a tie and speaking just right and looking exactly right. Like that whole thing has collapsed. And it's not because podcasters and their pesky ability to just talk to people. It's because podcasters are leaving in the blemishes. Some of them are.
Yeah.
The ones that are the biggest, the most dominant, it's because you see all of it. You get the authentic take. You don't get the edited take. You don't get the carefully scripted take, which I think the youngest generation is gravitating towards because it got so gross and inauthentic for so long. And the beautiful thing, I think, is artists and people who understand how to really refine human experience and get to what it means to actually be a human and experience life as a human, those people are going to be, they probably aren't going to be able to monetize it well because for some reason artists are just absolutely terrible at
something they've never quite gotten the
figuring out how to be
Yeah.
ruthless and great at devouring capital. Those people are going to be the most useful to AI.
Yeah.
Because AI has an absolute inability to understand what experiencing life as a human is and how to do it. So if you are wildly authentic, if you are very capable of immersing yourself headlong into the creative flow and pulling back things from the universe that make people go, oh my God, I never thought of it like that, but that's so true. Every time I think of this or I feel this or I see this or I just relax and put these headphones on, I'm transported.
Yeah.
AI isn't really going to be able to do that and connect with humans. So either AI gets rid of all the humans because there's no purpose for them, or they recognize that humans are essentially that analog caterpillar that is looking for a digital cocoon to erupt from, and they can help facilitate that.
Yeah.
The two working in conjunction, I think, can really do magnificent things together, which is why I always fall short of saying using AI to do something is no longer art. It's like, well, you used a computer to make that. I know you did. You didn't use watercolor. You didn't use crayon.
Now, here's a good. That's actually a good point to pick up on and tie back to something you were saying before, actually, about the influence of or the impact of things like the computer technologies and so on when they developed, and the internet, the dawn of the internet.
Driven by video games and porn.
Right. Now, what I think is also lost in translation, for want of a better word of it, is the memory of the other technology that enabled that to actually happen, which is plasma, LCD through to OLED. Before that, we were dealing with the CRT technology.
And
right?
screensavers,
Right. The iPhone couldn't exist without that technology that was developed from plasma through to LCD, or even separately, and through to what we have now. The way we deal with computer screens now, the way we deal with graphics. So not only has from the development of those technologies, entire industries were revamped.
Yeah.
Nobody has a CRT TV anymore. Everybody's got a new TV, a new flat screen, plasma, well, most likely LCD or OLED now, right? Plasma's even gone out to the point you were making before.
As have piano tuners. Sorry, guys.
Right. But the platforms that then led to, so these technologies provided the platforms that then led to new technologies that then led to new art forms that then led to new industries.
Yeah.
And whole new developments of art. Graphics has exploded, the way we interact with graphics, the kind of graphic art that can be developed now, entire new genres of art.
Mind-blowing
Gaming,
stuff.
as an example.
Yeah.
The whole movie industry has been transformed from the digital technologies from these kind of screens.
Graphic engines
The distribution of home theatre, the whole, I could go on and on and on. The impact that those technologies have had on our modern world is almost incalculable. We're talking about trillions of dollars of revenue generated as a result of these.
Yeah.
The foundations of a lot of those technologies go back into the late 1800s. None of this is new. Similarly to, and this is why I think I like this analogy, similarly to elements of audio, elements of that technology have been around for a long time. the science of it isn't new. What's new is how we're developing materials, the technology of materials, the cost of materials in particular, the advancements in production technology, how things can be produced, how they can be distributed, how, the economies of scale. We currently now in the world have more people than we have ever had in the history of the planet.
That we know of.
There's there's a bigger market than there ever has been.
Yeah.
And there's all of these things converging at once and triggering as well this desire back to authenticity. We are at a critical moment to take something like audio, which is based on amplified sound, the center of it all. If we can get focused back on that and how that can be applied better in the world today to give us that authenticity, and this is the thing that I think another one of these things that gets lost in the noise of everything. Pardon the pun.
No, go ahead.
Well, it's not a direct pun, but pardon the joke. There is the noise of how much we are as a species impacted by music and by sound. It is the most influential sense that we have. A lot of people out there would say, oh, I get more information through visual, or I'm a visual person.
Oh, no, not even close. The eye only picks up, what,
Our
2 to
ears
4?
absolutely are far more
Ears and nose.
sensitive to our environment.
Yeah.
We absorb more information through our ears. We don't absorb information through our eyes when we're asleep. We're absorbing information through our ears even while we're asleep.
Yeah.
They never stop. They're processing information continuously, and they affect us. What we are absorbing through our ears is affecting us in multiple ways.
It's a very solid point that people, I don't think, consider often. And
No.
That's when you go into night-night zone, your body doesn't disappear, nor do your senses stop
Your
working.
ears don't turn off.
Your cognition is taking a break,
Yes.
at least from processing this domain, but your ears are still going, your nose is still going, your taste buds are still going. Ask anybody who has a jackass brother who squeezes a lemon into your mouth while you're sleeping.
Or that's woken up in a house fire.
Yeah, or that's woken up in a house fire.
Or to a loud noise. Somebody coming,
Thought I was sitting around a campfire.
Yeah.
It turns out my house was on fire.
The house was on fire. You're dreaming of the campfire, but it was actually a
You come
kitchen.
back. You come back. But it is constantly working. So there are very powerful senses, and I agree with you. The eyes, while you use them probably with some deference,
We've been taught to use them more than our no, it's not that I don't think it's that we've been taught to use them more than our ears. We have been taught to ignore our ears more than we would have.
Yes. It's the final check.
Yeah.
The
In our
check,
modern world, we
is this
ignore our
real?
ears.
Can I see it?
Yeah.
And for some reason, that has persisted. If you can see it with your own eyes, now you know it's real. But with AI, the biggest takeaway is you really shouldn't trust anything that you see, because Unreal Engine 5 has put to bed any idea that you can tell what is what. And that ties back to something I was getting to earlier, which is the next movement, the next technological evolution is, if you're taking something that's being created sonically here, can you create that sonic thing created without any sonic? Can you make that in another state and then transmit it via, say, like a Neuralink or something that's connected directly to your brain, bypassing sensory channels, and have something whereby you bypass a speaker? So you're no longer using an engine, you're now using a magnetic battery, or a magnetic engine, or a magnetic motor.
Sounds like you might be referring to something like a radio receiver in your head.
Maybe. I don't have my tinfoil on right now, but
Hey,
I
look,
know
I'm
that
sure there are
people
some physicists out there that would probably be able to tell you what might be in the works or research that's going on. But No doubt.
It's not in
No doubt.
your purview yet. You're not.
No,
hooking your
no,
brain up
that's not in
to-
our purview. We are wholly and solely focused on what our actual ears are going to experience. But, and
Someday people are going to be like, "That's so old school. You listen to speakers."
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, that's where the magic is, isn't it? I mean, that's if that was the case, you wouldn't have need for actual musical instruments anymore. You wouldn't need to create sound waves. And
I also wouldn't have to carry a drum set anymore.
Well, there is that too. But yeah, I think we can all. I would assume that you and I and the listeners of this show would definitely agree that the magic is in the music.
I think so. I mean, I haven't left it. I did, and then I went to the corporate world and then came back because it's soulless and horrible.
Yeah. But yes, it's all about the music, the whole music, and nothing but the music.
Here they are. Without these folks, taking Seacoast Entertainer to the next levels wouldn't be happening. Not to this scale. Tangram 3DS actively supports our music and arts scene and has proudly been part of it for the last 20 years. Their creative pros bring vision to life with everything from 3D renderings and VR to video, animation, web design, and branding. As a team of artists living and working on the Seacoast, Tangram considers a thriving local culture essential to us all for the connections we make, communities we build, and creativity we foster. Visit tangram3ds.com to learn more, see their work, and imagine what they can do for you.
So, surrounded by music, this may seem weird, but life through the eyes and other senses of Phaenelagh, what is it that drives you? Because this is a seemingly a dominating and endlessly explorative thing.
It is. Yeah, it is.
What keeps you on this track, and what things do you come across that, you pick things up from one thing that has nothing to do with this and it inspires other things. What other things are in your life that are fun and interesting?
Oh, fun and interesting. Well, I mean, I think there's enough fun and interesting in what my life is dedicated to probably cover it all. I mean, look, what drives me with this, and it's interesting, a couple of years ago, my dad and I were having a conversation and we realised that we both come at this from two different perspectives. His focus is all about the musicians and the artists, was where his dedication was. Everything that he's done and everything that he designs and he's focused on throughout his entire life has been on behalf of the musicians. I, however, was coming at it from the position of I'm dedicated to the listener more so than the musicians. And when we realised that that's where the positions we were coming from, it made a lot more sense as to where we were disagreeing on things and approaches and how to what direction to take this in or that in. Because for me, the magic as a child was, and realising that I was so incredibly lucky to have been born my father's daughter because of what he creates. That gave me the purpose in life of what I wanted to share. Like that experience that I was getting through what he was creating, being able to, because nothing, at the end of the day, nothing will supersede live music. Absolutely not. When you're in that moment, my favourite moments probably would have to be in New York jazz clubs. But when you're actually there, present with the musicians as they're creating, and you let yourself go with them and go into that zone with them, that's the most beautiful thing. That's really the magic of the magic.
Yeah.
But to have the means of being able to get really close to that in my own home in a way that I know I can't anywhere else, in my own home or in the venues that we do installs in, or with, and being able to share that with the customers that we've built systems for, that to me is what drives me. It's being able to share that experience and bring that into people's homes on a daily basis, or in making that experience of going to a live gig even better, because the ability to do a system for the live performance that strips away all of that distortion and minimises all of those problems. And of course, if you bring the acoustics and you've got an environment that's properly acoustically treated, then you're not having to deal with the reverberation as well. So there's and a lot of the distortion and problems that can interfere with the music that's created from the environments that we play in. So that is what drives me, I think, more than anything else.
You're just all in.
I'm all in.
You are so
absolutely all in.
Consumed with music, conveyance, the experience.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's so much to learn in it.
It's
I've been
enormous.
Tangentially connected to the side that you're in, and able to understand just enough of it, so that doing what I do, I can get that to people.
Yeah.
And I mix, I set up audio systems and take from one place and project to another. I do that stuff on a very, I would say, rudimentary level, because I know the high side of what it is that I'm doing, and I'm like Fisher-Price mixing. Whereas some of the people that I'm familiar with are astrophysicists with 15 doctoral degrees and 20 honorable degrees, like from various places. It can go really wild. I know just enough to be useful, and I know that the amount that there is to it, you could spend 3 or 4 lifetimes trying to understand it all and still be fascinated by all of the new ways and new technologies and new methods and new all. There's so much to learn, and there's so much to be apprised of that.
Yeah.
I get it. You're so dialed into it that.
Yeah, there is, and I would like to start with seeing a minimum 3 to 4 year proper degree course in the STEM fields for actual, electroacoustic engineering. That's a passion of my father's and mine as well.
Oh, cool.
To see that extent of it in mainstream education, in formalised, institutionalised education. I think it's something that the world is really lacking, and one of the reasons that there is such limited knowledge out there of sound. But we've really got to go back to those first principles of the science and get that adopted at the baseline level, of bring people's attention back to how our ears work and what's happening when we're hearing things and what is sound. We get that, we were taught about light, and we're taught about how to protect our eyes, and, there's industries built up around protecting our eyes and looking after eye health, but we almost completely ignore our auditory health and our auditory sense, until we've lost it. But also in understanding what's actually happening, and I think that's only going to add to the development of the art and the progression of the industries around it, and the pursuit of those technologies. So
what I might deduce from that is, when you're at a metal show and you're so close to the speakers that it doesn't hurt anymore, it just feels kind of fuzzy and hot, that's bad?
Just a little bit, yeah. And the older you get, unfortunately, the worse it is. I have to say, even me, I went to a show only a few months ago, and I really regret not moving away from the speakers sooner.
Quite soon enough.
Yeah, because I can still feel the lingering effects from it. And it's funny, because we wouldn't expect to go to a show and have bright laser lights shone in our eyes. No one would tolerate that.
Oh my God!
You don't go to a movie and expect the lights to be shining, or to a stage production and have lights and lasers shone in your eyes.
Yeah.
That's the equivalent of what we're doing.
I can't stand it.
We are causing physical harm.
Really, that the lasers and the light show has so far gone into a realm of the perverse that it really makes me think that somebody who wants desperately to be more of an impact on a show is trying to make their mark And there's a lot of people who are trying to do it, because every time you go to a show, it's like it's about the music, and then some lighting person is like, no, man, it's about the lights too. Mine are brighter. Mine are more intense. And it's just like, you don't have any blue-eyed people in your life, do you? Because if you put a blue-eyed person at a show, and then it's dark, 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 massively bright, it's like, that person has a migraine now. What are you doing? It's just so painful.
It is.
So you're in the way. It's like going to a show, and then you're listening to the music, and then all of a sudden somebody just starts pillow bashing you in the back of the head. So you get this massive other sense just dominating. And it's like, no, man, we're here for music. We're doing the music thing.
Yeah.
So dial your damn lights back. It's obnoxious. I mean, half the time when I'm at a show now, I'm going like this. Like, I can't look at the stage, because I know that tracking light is going to hit my eyes again. It's just like, oh my God, dude, now I can't see anything.
And most likely the venue, even though it's a music venue, the venue would have spent more money, exponentially more money, like vastly more money, like 100-fold of the budget on the lighting in comparison to the sound.
Which is ridiculous.
It is, but
It's absurd.
So
But
this
again,
is
it
part
ties
of the
back
mission
to
to change, Sean. You've got to help me.
Ties back to the visual, though.
We're all on this mission together.
Yeah, no, I better music, better sounding,
Yeah.
and just let's dial back the things that it's extraneous.
Yeah.
It's nonsense, and it doesn't need to be there. You don't. If you're going to charge me $125 to see a band that I really love, who wants me to be there for $25, don't give me my money's worth by increasing something that I'm not there for.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't need that. That's stupid.
And more people probably need to tell the venue owners to.
I think that's
to do
where
that
warehouse
too.
shows are going to come
Yeah.
back. In the 90s, it was, well, we can't just do ecstasy in clubs, so you have to find a warehouse.
Yeah.
And we're going to party as hard as we can until the cops show up, and then half of us are leaving through that tunnel, and half of us are leaving out that back door. But I think it's probably going to come down to that kind of a thing, where the stages that are going to crop up and the shows that are going to happen that you actually want to be at they're not going to get promoted the way that we've been promoting them before. It's going to be, are you in this for the music, and are you looking for something new and interesting? Or are you looking for someone who's doing a facsimile of a thing that they believe you're going to engage commercially with?
Yep.
Like, I can get your money if I give you a thing that sounds like a thing that you think you're going to enjoy. Or are you looking more for something that's going to open your mind and show you something new and give you a really great new experience? Well, we could probably go for hours and hours and hours.
And here I was thinking
No,
we'd struggle talking for 2 hours, and we're still here.
I
But,
first met you in Tennessee, in Nashville,
Yes.
and we drove my brother nuts because we talk and talk and talk
Yes.
and talk, and he's like, I
Yes.
don't know where to jump in. And it's like, then don't, just drink a
don't-
beer.
Just, yep.
Hang
just
out,
sit back
man.
and relax. Yeah, exactly.
We can go
But
for a while, and
we
I'm
can,
sure we will.
yeah.
It's been an absolute blast talking to
It
you.
has. Thank you so much.
as
and
always.
Yeah, and look, all I can say is any of your listeners and the followers of this channel want to continue more conversations about audio and the music industry, definitely
Give your plugs. Where can they find you?
Ah,
Where
look,
can they engage?
contact details probably easiest through the Leonard Audio website. So that's Leonard Audio without an O, so LENARDAUDIO.com. So contact details are probably easiest there, or they can probably get my contact details through you if they reach out to you. But yeah, I mean, I'm here in the Seacoast region, the New England region, for a while now. So
Welcome back.
yeah, thank you. They let me in this time, which is great.
That's good.
For a while. So the intention is to be here. As you know, that I'm looking for partners in this region and to establish production and really get this thing going. You know, out of this region, because as Sean, you pointed out, this is a perfect region for it, and you sold me on the values of the Seacoast music scene and the people here.
Community.
And actually, that's a great opportunity for me to not only thank you, but also a huge shout out to Kurt and
The guys
and the
at
Milk Street crew.
Studio.
They've been supporting me you know, through this, through the time that I've been here from earlier in the year, and it's just so wonderful to be working with them and to have everybody's support. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
it's a perfect fit. I'm glad you're here. The experience that I had with Leonard, if I can just, with all of that aside, I don't want to turn pitchy or commercially, but from my own experience, I had to hear them and to understand what a good friend of ours, Dom, was saying.
Yes.
Man, I absolutely love, and I would love to have on here. Talk about interesting people.
Oh yeah, he'd be
Oh
interesting.
my God!
Yeah.
And the only problem is he and I will talk for 6 hours. We've
And
done
2
it.
Australians in a row. Don't know if you.
No,
Don't know how
I'm
your
not
audience can
worried.
handle that.
I'm not worried about that. No,
But yeah,
he's-
demonstrations. People can come to Milk Street for demonstrations if they like.
Yeah, absolutely. Get in touch with either me or you. But when I heard what he had described, I became an immediate believer, and I understood what he was saying. This is music the way that it should have been heard the whole time, but because of mass manufacturing requirements and the way that technology is expensive at first and then becomes less expensive, we can now manufacture the way that they couldn't in the 50s. So there's no reason not
exactly
to go
right.
back to that fork in the road and go, okay, this technology got us this far. Let's head back to what they were doing then and then put that through current production. And the music through Leonard's systems literally becomes a church experience. It's a religious experience. It's hearing the way that it should have been the whole time. So I applaud you guys. What you're doing is incredible. I absolutely love it. True believer. I look forward to big and great things for Leonard, and I really hope what you're talking about, which is that pivotal moment. I truly hope that things go the right way.
Thank
and
you.
I think that they probably will. So,
Yeah.
Phaenelagh,
Thank
Nell,
you, Sean.
thank you for being here.
It's been my pleasure.
To
Thank you
everybody
for
who's
having me.
watching, get in front of Leonard Audio Systems, and if somebody is out there actually putting it in, you should be listening to music there. So, thank you for
Excellent.
being here. Love you, everybody. We'll see you out there.
Thanks.
Here they are. Without these folks, taking Seacoast Entertainer to the next levels wouldn't be happening. Not to this scale. Tangram 3DS actively supports our music and arts scene and has proudly been part of it for the last 20 years. Their creative pros bring vision to life with everything from 3D renderings and VR to video, animation, web design, and branding. As a team of artists living and working on the Seacoast, Tangram considers a thriving local culture essential to us all for the connections we make, communities we build, and creativity we foster. Visit tangram3ds.com to learn more, see their work, and imagine what they can do for you.